to the Talent Optimization Podcast, the go-to podcast for CEOs and HR professionals wanting to bridge the gap between the strategy and tactical implementation of talent optimization within their organizations. Through interviews, predictive index, and personal experience, your host, Tracy Shirk, helps you discover the facets of talent optimization from both a CEO and HR perspective to truly create the dream team for your organization. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Welcome to the Talent Optimization Podcast. Today, we are chatting about mentoring, and we are in January. And I don't know about you, but January is one of those months that I absolutely love because it's the start of something new. And I know we're in the third week of this new year of 2023. So I'm curious. I want you to look around your office right now, or outside your office window, or if you are virtual, I want you to think about all the people that you get to touch every single day and how can you make an impact? And let me tell you, I have an amazing special guest for us today. And with me is the evil HR lady. If that is not the best name ever, and if you have never met Suzanne, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. So we are chatting today a little bit about mentoring and a little bit about how when we mentor others and when we connect with others, there's something really important that we need to do. And that is ensure we're connecting with them so that they can actually take that information and make an impact with it. And you have a crazy fun way of doing this.
I do have a crazy fun way of doing it, which is through improv comedy. So the whole thing with improv is very different from stand-up, where you just stand up on a stage and you say stuff, right? And you hope the audience reacts. Improv is all about integrating the audience into it. So it's perfect for training people, mentoring people, because it's all about service and bringing people together.
So I was sitting with a client this week and the client's like, Tracy, I just don't know what to do with this person. I'm like, well, tell me all about it, right? And she's like, Tracy, they're just a jackass. And I'm like, well, okay, so how would you take that one? How would you coach them on supporting an individual in their organization that they feel is a jerk?
Well, there's a game that we play in improv. It's a warm-up game. It's not something that we really do on stage, but it's called 5 Things. And what we do is I would say to you, Tracy, give me 5 types of shoes. And you have to, in rapid succession, come up with 5 things. And it's so easy to get 1 and 2. 3 is hard. By the time you get to 4, you have never heard of shoes before in your life. You have no idea what a shoe is. You cannot think of it. You finally come up with 1, and then there's 1 more you have to do.
Okay, so I want to play. Give me a topic.
Okay, give me 5 things found in your kitchen.
5 things found in my kitchen. A teapot, a cast iron pan, a little spatula flipper thingy, a can opener, and a knife and a fork and a spoon.
There you go. And we can make it harder or easier, but it stretches your brain. And so that's what I would do in this situation. If they've decided they're not going to fire this person, because sometimes you need to fire jerks, right? Or sometimes we let people go, and that's okay. All right, so let's come up with 5 things that we can do to help. We're not going to stop at 1. We're not going to stop at 2. We're going to go through 5, because it's that 4th and 5th that are stretching your brain. And maybe it's stupid. Whatever you come up with is stupid, but maybe it's something to help you. Maybe it's something that you haven't seen before.
Yeah. And that is harder, right? So let's brainstorm this. So this person comes to me and says, hey, Tracy, this person's a jerk. All right. So if I were to say, what are 5 things that you can do to support this individual? What would you come up with?
Well, okay. So it depends on what the individual is, but have they talked with the EAP yet? Have you had a heart-to-heart, come to Jesus conversation with this person? Or is everybody like, oh, no, we can't talk with this person? Okay, that's 2. Suspended the person, transferred the person, asked the person what they need to be nicer.
Yeah. Or what happened that made them be a jerk?
Right. What happened to make you be a jerk? And actually,
do they know they're being a jerk?
Well, that's a good question, isn't it? Because sometimes people know they're being jerks and sometimes people don't know they're being jerks.
Right. Absolutely. So my response to her was, I'm like, first thing I typically do is like, let's see if we can get in with honey. She came back in an email and she goes, I couldn't get in with honey. What's option 2, 3, and 4?
Exactly.
Okay. So this is a really fun game. And for all of our listeners, what I want you to think of, especially typically you're all in HR or your executives that are listening into this. So for any leadership position, it's all right, what are 5 things we can do to help this person, right? So you can do this in mentoring, you can do this with training, you can do this in coaching. So love it.
Right. And you can do it with yourself too. Like, what are 5 things that I can do to be a better person or whatever? And of course, you can practice as fun. It's a great icebreaker too. And, you can do ridiculous things, 5 restaurants that you would never eat at, or 5 space creatures or whatever. It doesn't have to be real things. It's just a brain stretching exercise. But then when you do it yourself, either to solve someone else's problem or to solve your own problem, it's like brainstorming. But the problem with brainstorming, I find, is people are like, oh, I have to come up with an infinite number, right? And then they panic. 5 things is 5 things, and then you're done. It gives you this nice limit that stretches your brain, but okay, if I just come up with 1 more, then I'm good. And that's a lot easier than let's make a list until we fill the blackboard,
Right.
Or
because
whiteboard.
then it's
I guess we don't use blackboards anymore.
Yeah, but then it's whiteboards, right? Whatever. But then it's infinite and we feel like we failed. So with the 5 things, we know we're going to win because we know we can hit 5 things.
You can hit 5 things. And even though your mind is going to likely go blank, you will come up with it. You'll come up with something. Like I said, it might be stupid, but that's another principle of improv, as we call it, failing with joy, because we all fail. Everyone fails. You fail. I fail. Everyone listening to this podcast has failed. We all do it. So you can either sit in the corner and cry about it, or you can fail with joy and say, gosh, what have I learned from this? Let's go on. Or, boy, that sucked. I don't want to do that again, and go on.
That was 3 things, by the way. You have 2 more for what happens when you fail. We can laugh about it, and then we can make a decision to try something else. There's 5.
There you go.
So one of the things you said, I love, love, love. And I said, hey, you're mentoring someone else, or da, 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 da. And you said, don't forget to do this yourself. As HR professionals and as leaders, so often we think about everybody else, but we forget about ourselves. And I just wanted to stop a second and point that out because it was gold.
It's such an important principle. And one of the things that I find really fascinating about HR people, I should say, I do a lot of resumes for HR people, and people who have given advice to their friends and family and who have reviewed 1 million resumes themselves. When they're ready to write theirs, they go into this complete panic. And some of the worst resumes I ever see are from recruiters. These are people that spend all day with resumes, but I don't think it's because they're dumb. And I don't think it's because they don't know what a good resume looks like. It's because they're so used to giving it to others that they can't figure out for themselves. It's really hard to look at yourself critically. It's easy to give feedback to someone else. It's hard to give feedback to yourself.
But I think the other side of that is, do we have the self-worth that we need to really stand up for ourselves versus to stand up for others? And guess what? You can't walk into a room confidently and have a seat at the table unless you have that confidence in yourself first.
And that is absolutely true, which is another principle of improv.
Tell me.
Okay, so you hear all the time, bring your authentic self to work. My authentic self,
BS, right?
likes to eat Ben & Jerry's ice cream straight out of the carton and watch The Good Place for the 400th time. That's not the person that needs to be in the meeting. So what can I do with improv skills? I can decide who I want to be in this meeting. Am I the ice cream shoveling couch potato? Or am I the calm, cool, collected, confident HR person? Am I the VP? It doesn't matter whether you're a VP or not. Label yourself that in your head and go with what are the attributes of someone who has this? How does this person sit? How do they talk? What words do they use? And act your way through it. Your authentic self, we aspire to be better. If you're like, this is how I am, deal with it, honey. Okay, then how you are is going to be how you stay forever. If you want to grow and develop, pick something better and pick it and move forward and remind yourself, mid-meeting when you start to slump, oh, well, no, this person sits straight up and keeps her chin up so that on the Zoom, you can't see her quadruple chins, right? Remind yourself, and you can even, if you're doing a Zoom meeting, you can write down the characteristics of the person you want to be, stick it on a sticky note on your laptop, and then you can see, okay, this is what I do.
I love it. Because what I'm hearing you say is you have to have the intention and you have to know who you want to be and step into who that person is. And is that, I know a principle we had talked about beforehand was embracing your inner yes. Is that a part of that, embracing your inner yes?
The principle of improv is we call it yes and. So whatever happens, instead of focusing on the past, which we so often do, and I'm not saying we can't focus on the past, and there are definitely times when you want to go sit down and debrief over a situation or whatever. Those things are really good. I'm not telling you to stop that. But once a decision has been made, and oftentimes HR finds themselves in this position, you can think of the poor HR person who gets to deliver the message that the CEO has decided that you have to have a doctor's note for every time you're out. Okay. I think every HR person on the planet knows that that's a stupid thing, right? That's a ridiculous thing, but there are managers, owners that want it. You fight the battle behind the scenes, you lose. Now your options are, yes, this is the rule, and this is what I'm going to do, or I quit. Those are your two options. You can't be this constant undermining person. Like, you have to fill it out because Tracy said you had to, but I think she's bad CEO. So that's completely destructive to the business. So if I'm going to be destructive, I should leave.
Right.
But if not, I'm going to be like, okay, how can I do this? What can I do to make my employees' lives better? Okay, is there a doctor in the area that we can contract with for people to do it? I could come up with 5 things that people could do and maybe find a solution. So yes, this is a dumb decision. And now what do I do? So often we get stuck in this is a dumb decision and we sit and stew, and it doesn't make it any better for anybody.
Right. Because guess what? You're making a choice to be stuck there versus saying, you know what? Sometimes I don't like my choices. So I need to pay attention to integrity and to my ethics and all those things. Yes. Right. And what are things that I can do that allow this to serve? When we know what our intentions are and when we know what our personal mission is, guess what? We can always stand in that. Just like the organization has their mission, vision, and values, we can always go back to what those things are. And one thing that I love to look at, especially in a situation like this, all right, CEO made a dumb decision, in my opinion. If I go back to our mission, vision, values, if it is a mission-oriented organization, which are the only ones we work with, so I'm just going to leave that there. I'm going to go back to that CEO and say, hey, can you help me understand how this decision moves our mission forward? Because I really want to get behind it and I'm struggling.
And that is an absolutely great thing to do. But if he comes back with an answer that you disagree with, at some point you have to either get on board or take yourself out of the organization. All that behind the scenes stuff that you can ask those questions, like, how does this do our mission? How does it? And then come up with it. Well, there are 5 things that we can do otherwise to cut down on absenteeism,
Right.
But when it comes down to it, you've got to find a way to make whatever that bad decision was work the best way possible.
Right. Awesome. And so one other kind of principle that we had talked about, and I think that this goes into kind of what we just said in this scenario of, all right, CEO made a decision that we don't necessarily like. And the principle is, how do we listen to what our executive team is saying? How do we listen to what our employees are saying? And I really think that this example is a great one that we can dive into this principle with.
This is because actually most of us spend most of our time in a conversation thinking about what we're going to say next rather than listening to what the other person has to say. It's just how we're wired. It's not that you're a bad person. And so you've probably heard, that active listening where you say, what you're saying is, and then you repeat it back, which is great in theory, but everybody knows it. So you sound like a condescending jerk when So what you're saying, Tracy, is that you think this goes with our mission, vision, and values because, and you immediately are going to tune me out because I'm doing the psychobabble.
Right.
stuff,
You feel like you
right?
just walked into a therapist office and you're not about to do that. So,
Right. So another game that we play that we teach is we'll tell a story. And so you'll start with the first line of a story. So give me a first line of a story.
okay, the first line of the story is the employee is refusing to watch the sexual harassment video in the state of Illinois, which it's required.
Okay. Now, what I have to do is start my answer with the last letter of the last word you said. So your last word was required, which ends with a D. So I have to start with a D. So I can say, did you talk with the employee about why they wouldn't watch that video? Now you have to then do an O, and it can be silly and it's supposed to be funny in practice. But if you start thinking that way, it forces you to wait until that person is done speaking before you can begin to formulate what you're going to say, because I don't know what you're going to end with. So I can't start until you're finished. And that forces you to listen to everything that they're going to say.
I have never heard that game before. That is fantastic.
It's a really fun game to play and it can be really silly. People say, oh, I can't do improv because I'm not funny. The funny just happens in improv. It's the people that are trying to be funny that aren't funny. The funny just happens.
Isn't that life, right?
It is. It honestly just happens. And so when you force yourself to wait until that very end, then you'll be able to give an answer that relates back to it. And you've had to absorb all of that because a lot of times, like what you started with was, I don't know, 25 words worth of stuff. That's quite a bit of info. As soon as I hear the sexual harassment, then I'm like starting to think, okay, well, do we need to do this, this, and this? But then it turns out that it's the video that he doesn't want to watch. But I've spent all this time formulating, oh, he needs training. Well, the training is the problem. He won't watch the dumb video.
Right.
But I've wasted all this brain power coming up with the solution to the problem that wasn't the problem. The problem is this thing down here. So it can really save things. Another thing is that we panic a lot with pauses. We don't like them. So we feel compelled to jump in before we've thought. And if you have to wait till the very last letter of the last word in the last sentence of what the person says, there's going to be a little pause and you have to learn to become comfortable with that.
All right. So I want to recap what we've said because this is amazing. So what we kind of talked about today is, look, if we're mentoring someone, if we're training, if we're coaching, some tools that you can now put in your belt are brainstorm 5 options for the challenge that's in front of you.
Right.
Truly, truly, truly listen to what the person is saying by playing a game, which is once they're finished talking, you have to start your sentence with the last letter of the last word in the last sentence. And always look at yourself and ask yourself what you would do versus focusing on other people. What did I miss?
The yes anding it. There are some things you have to accept. And, on stage, it's something like I say, oh, Tracy, what a lovely cat you're holding. And then suddenly you're holding a cat, and so you can start petting it. But what you can't say is I don't have a cat or it's a dog. No, I've just told you you had a cat. Accept it. Right? So in HR, we're in that position a lot. This is what it is. Okay. And if we want to think back to many years before with COVID, and the rules changed every freaking day, right? And we could spend all of our time online complaining about this and they're not doing enough or they're doing too much or whatever. But we had to just say, okay, this is the rule. How am I going to implement it? That's what we do. So that yesing and then the most important thing is fail with joy. You're going to fail. It's going to happen. Sometimes you're going to fall flat on your face and you can either crawl into a dark hole and quit your job and never come out again, or you can laugh and move forward. And that's so much better. It's so much better to move forward.
D. I don't know what to start with a D. So
it's hard, but it's hard on purpose.
No, it's great. So with that, as we land this plane here with this amazing conversation, I am so curious, what is a takeaway that you have for executives listening in today?
The takeaway I have for executives is to not only fail with joy yourself, but allow those around you to fail with joy as well. You are not perfect. They are not perfect. So fail with joy together.
Awesome. And what about for our HR professionals? Don't quit. No.
Don't quit. You can do it. You got through COVID. You can do anything.
See, I got the D back eventually.
There you go. That your job is to help make life easier for everybody, but that includes yourself. So make sure that as you're looking to serve your employees, your coworkers, your direct reports, whatever the business, that you also take that time to make sure that you're getting what you need.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And I know one of the things that our listeners are going to want to know is where to find you. And you are launching a improv coaching training cohort thing, correct?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I did my very first group today and it was fantastic. So,
yay! So you can find Suzanne at evilhrlady.org and look at her improv coaching program. And as we're talking about coaching, if you are interested in our HR office hours, that is going to be available in our show notes as well. And we would love to have you show up to be like, I don't know how to do this HR thing. And that is what we are here for, because there is no stupid question. We just laugh about them and give you some answers. Actually, we don't give you any answers. We help you come up with your own answers. And I think we're going to play Suzanne's game that we're going to play the 5 game.
It's the best. It's super fun.
I love it. Awesome. So thank you so much for being with us. And if you have not followed the Evil HR Lady on LinkedIn, do, because you're going to laugh and you're going to go, why did I think of that? So I'll just throw that out there. So
there you go. Yes, you can follow me on LinkedIn. And if you're an HR professional or you manage people, then you can join us in our Evil HR Lady Facebook group.
Ooh, good stuff. Awesome. So thank you so much. I hope you have a fantastic week, and we will see you back here next week, where we are again chatting about mentoring, and one of our favorite guests will be back again, and that is Dr. Mandolin Mull. So see you then. Have a great week.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Talent Optimization Podcast. You'll find more tools and resources for CEOs and HR professionals looking to bridge the strategies versus implementation gap of talent optimization at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. We've also created a free, valuable resource for you to begin bridging the gap called the Talent Optimization Foundation Membership Program. You can access it for free at elevatedtalentconsulting.com/foundation. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode to learn more about talent optimization and creating a dream team for your organization.